Hi, this is Josh from American Pinball, and today I'm going to take you on a quick tour through our service menu on the Houidni Pinball machine. I'm actually running this off my laptop so I can do a little better job of capturing the screen than we would be able to otherwise. So let's get started. I'm going to hit enter to get into the service menu. It does have the same standard 4 buttons that have been on most pinball machines for the last 20 years. So there's an enter and an exit or back button, and then left, right. Here we are on the main page of the API cockpit, and this is the top level menu, and you can see we have here tests, settings, stats, traditionally called audits, and utilities. You can see lower on the screen there's a message box telling us that there is a switch error. To go to tests to take a look at that, and we can see that the health meter has us on yellow. If it was a more serious issue, it would be on red, and we'll be tweaking some of the logic around that over time. So let's first start by going into the test menu. You're going to see the traditional test items here, switches, coils, LEDs, the display. We have some cabinet tests, as well as tests associated with the stage. So we'll start off with switches. Houidni does not use a switch matrix. It's all direct wired switches, but we do give you a sort of a switch look. Each column here actually represents a different board in the game, so that kind of helps you identify issues. Because I'm running this on my laptop, not on the machine, we're getting some oddness with some of the coloring, meaning that typically the bright green is when a switch is active, and dark green would be if it's a normally closed switch that currently is not active. So since we don't actually have a trough with balls in it, it's showing up, and vice versa. And we can also see in this particular case on the left side that the left in lane is showing in red, and that's because that is our switch error. If we were testing the actual game, we could go hit that switch, and if it's working, it would clear it. So we're going to go do that now here in the simulator. And you can see that I hit the left in lane switch. Now that it's registered, it's no longer red. And we can now see on the right side information about the switch, its wire color, which board in the game, and the manual would help you identify which board underneath the playfield that is, which bank and which pin on the connector on that board is associated with the left in lane. Now, what the display will also do is as other switches get hit in the game, it will show you the last 6 switches that have been hit, spinner being the most recent. It looks like I hit the escape key a few times with the E, and then that left in lane. Let's see if we can get some other switches in here. So this allows you in some cases, for an orbit or the trough, to be able to throw the ball around and see the switch hits, because sometimes it goes by too quick and you didn't see whether or not it was hit. And again, they do flash green, and I guess it would help if I turn my sounds on here so we can get some sound turned on, and there we go. Get our sound effects in there. Okay, I'm going to exit back up to the next level. We'll switch over to coils, and coils and LEDs have a similar look. In this case, hitting the start button or enter button will fire the coil one time. It won't keep firing it. At least currently that's how we have that set up. As I said, LEDs works in a similar way. Now when you first go into the LED test, all LEDs on the game will be flashing in a red, green, blue pattern. So you can see right away if they're all working, and then you can step through them. One of the things you'll find is as you step through, this is ordered by the way they appear on the playfield, going bottom to top, left to right. So you can see the first one in the list is Encore, which is the shoot again insert. Then Return from Beyond, which is the lowest left insert. Escape Death is the lowest right insert. And then as we continue to go through, it'll work, like I said, left to right, and then from bottom to top through the playfield. Makes it a little bit easier to kind of go through and see if there's an issue. And it certainly helps our playfield testers quickly go through to make sure everything is wired correctly. The display test does nothing more than throw a series of colors up on the display. Again, it helps make sure everything's working correctly. The cabinet test looks similar to the coil and LED test. And basically here's where you can test the start button lamp that it's flashing correctly and a way to test out the shaker motor. And there's a capacity here for other things we might add in the future. Finally, it brings us to the stage test. Using the flipper buttons will let you move through the stage. First, you can open and close the curtain of the stage, and then there's a captive ball inside that moves into different positions. The ready position is when it's able to capture another ball inside the stage, the ability for it to hold the ball, eject the ball, which is a feature not currently in use, as well as then dropping the ball down into the subway. So if the stage is not working correctly, this lets you take it through its various steps. Okay, let's then move back up. So that takes us through the test menu. Let's move on to settings next. Again, we see a variety of categories. We have the coil strength settings, features unique to Houidni, pricing, replay options, sound configuration, and standard. So we'll kind of quickly go through each of these. Here in the coil menu is where we can address the different coils in the game and figure out the right buttons here to navigate. And I can do that by entering and then using the appropriate keys to change the strength as needed, and then save it. Now, as soon as I issued the save here, if you do have the power engaged in the flipper door, you can immediately test these things. All of these things would be live. You can hit the flipper, you can pop a ball and flip it. So you can very quickly test it, adjust without having to leave here. You can actually smack the ball around in general in this mode, tweak your settings until they're correct. You will find that, so we can do this again, get this the right way. Once that you get to what the default setting is, when going through the options, it will turn green. Potentially in the future, we'll show even in the main view which ones are currently at the default settings. Okay, let's move our way over to the Features tab. This is where you can adjust various game features. I'm not going to go through these in detail at this time, but as you can see, for example here, how many escapes to earn escape from death, which is one of the outlane modes. We'll just jump down. The difficulty of jail escapes, whether or not they're in random or specific order. If you enable the tournament option, anything that is random, set to random, will go back to being in a specific order. It'll also disable all of the extra balls. So just flipping that on, you don't have to go through and mess with the rest of your settings. So see quite a few different things in here around difficulty. There are some options that will let you adjust how hard it is to earn Houidni letters. So while the default is 5 for many things, you're doing all of the movies, all of the escapes, all of the missions. If after a few months you haven't been able to spell Houidni, you can come in and make it easier. You can also, in a couple of cases, earn 2 Houidni letters. So in the Magic Shop, you can actually configure this to be able to earn a Houidni letter at 5 or 6, and then when you get to 8. So if you're finding you just can't do the secret missions, again, you can tweak it to make it a little bit easier to get to experience the magician modes. Pricing, obviously, this doesn't impact everybody, mostly for operators. This allows you to determine what the unit value is for your machine, which is the lowest currency you'll accept. If you have a 25-cent coin slot, it would be that. If you only have a dollar bill validator on there or using a swipe system, you would set it to that. You can set the value for each of the coin slots based on that. So if this was a dollar coin slot, it would be equivalent to 4 units. How many credits are currently on the game if you want to just load up a bunch of credits for some reason. In this case, free play is turned on. And then here's where you can pick from the different pricing plans that are available. I'm sure over time we'll add more as they're identified, things that people are looking for. But you have sort of the most common and basic ones that are out there today. Okay, next up is the replay section. how many replay levels you're going to have, what those values are, what type of an award it is, whether it's a free game, an extra ball, points, or completely turned off. Whether or not you're using, there's two replay types right now. There's fixed and boost. We will look at an auto as well. What boost will do is anytime a award is been granted, on the next game it will increase each of these values by 50,000 points. It'll increase it again if it's won again, and then it will slowly bring it back down for each game that it's not earned until it gets back to the original setting. Sounds. Houidini is a pretty chatty game, and over time you might find that it's a little too chatty, and this allows you to turn on and off various features. Announce next shot, for example, is after a shot is made in most of the movie or stage modes, it'll call out to you what shot you need to hit next. Whether or not when you do flipper escape, it halts any the voice calls currently going on. You can adjust volume here as well as through the coin door. Whether or not the movie introductions are discussed, when movies are open, if it tells you what they are, the rules for each movie. You can choose between a couple of different sounds for the slingshot. You can see a variety of similar options for the stage modes. Finally, we get to the standard features, things like whether or not there's music and sounds in the track mode. Not that those are fully implemented yet. Adjusting whether or not there's a ball save and how long, balls per game. Maximum extra balls, whether or not you have a shaker motor installed, and some settings around the tilt and how sensitive it is, and multiple hits to the tilt. Okay, so let's move our way over to the statistics or audits. What you'll see here is that the game will show you the most recent period of time, the last window of time, which has to do with between the last resets of the audits. So in this particular case, the audits were reset on the 4th. You can see the previous window ran from December 2nd through January 2nd was the last time the game had been played and data had been captured. And then the last column is all time, which you can see in this case matches up with that previous setting. So each time you audit, reset the audits, the next time we do it, this first column will move over. And that historical data those different audit windows are kept on the system, and you can pull those off by inserting a USB key into the USB extension cable in the coin door. It'll copy off all the previous audits as well as game logs, which is handy if you're having issues with your game. We'll ask you to send us the log so we can see what the issue might be. I can then use the flipper buttons to move through the different categories of statistics. So I can get to earnings, I can see the game features, how many times films have been started, seance, multi-balls, etc. This sort of helps figure out difficulty settings and helps us right now in figuring out what default should be. What the game times have been, what the score ranges have been, and then sort of the standard stuff, tilts, extra balls, and so as you can see, quite a variety there. And again, on the basics is where you sort of get the number of games played and average scores, game times, ball times, etc. Finally, that takes us to utilities. The most common, clearing out the balls of the game. Houidini does have a guard on the trough, so if you lift your playfield, the balls won't come flying out of the trough, but sometimes you might want to clear them out from the subways or from the stage as well. Clearing the audits, which we sort of already hit on. Setting date and time. The game will do a reboot after you adjust the date and time, so just keep that in mind. Restoring the factory or default settings, and then stage calibration. If the stage is acting strangely, or sometimes after a code update, you might need to come back and recalibrate the stage. You certainly need to do it if you restore default settings. You must adjust your stage calibration after that, or your game certainly will behave oddly. That pretty much covers the API cockpit. Hopefully you found this helpful and informative. Thank you very much.